Join us for Live Sweats.
Oh!
Yes!
Let's go, Kansas
80,
State.
75.
That was a big balls 3.
30 minutes ago.
Big balls 3. Instant reaction.
This is an unbelievable thing for me to see. My favorite team, my true favorite team. Less mistress, more side piece.
And maybe a few regrettable decisions.
Oh, he's got bust written all over him. Gutekunst sucks. Jordan Addison ran a 5.3 40, and he's Trista's height. I'd take him.
You know what you shouldn't have done? Bet on the Wizards.
Yep.
Now, live from Washington, D.C., it's Ryan Horvath, Trista Crick, and Nick Ashew.
Trista and Nick tonight. Trista in Portland. I'm out on the East Coast, just outside of D.C. The home studio this time. You know, Trista, it is nice. I will say it's nice to do the home studio thing and not in studio. Or in your case, I feel like the Portland studio for you is like your home away from home in this case.
Yeah, that's right. The remote setup is just so much better.
And I got the fake movies jersey characters behind me. I can swap those out occasionally. I do have Ricky Vaughn over here too. I should actually move that since we're in the middle of baseball season. I don't do it. We're not here as much. I used to swap them more. I need to get back and do that. I've only got the Bobby Boucher and Shane Falco, which have just been up there for so long. I used to be better at this. And by the way, you can get way too many of these on Amazon. It's a problem. I have found way too many movie character jerseys that I could bring on that are just, I would have a million of them delivered if I really could. So, yeah, we're getting to the point now in the baseball season where, listen, this is August. This is no longer like, hey, there's a lot of baseball left. Hey, there's plenty of time here. We are now in the meat of this. This is when things are starting to really, really ramp up. And that's why we bring on Bret Boone, three-time All-Star, but of course also host of the Bret Boone podcast now as well. And speaking of teams that are ramping up, the Astros have won 6 straight. We talked about it a lot on the show throughout the season. We're like, you just go, okay, at some point, they're probably going to turn this thing on. Do we look at the Astros now and say, hey, they're back, they're a World Series contender, or do you still have some doubts with them?
Oh, man. If you would have talked to me 2 months ago and you said the Astros are going to contend for the World Series, I'd say you're crazy, but I would say a lot of things. This season for me has been really interesting. I mean, starting the beginning of the season, month in, there's no way the Mets have no chance. They played their way back in. They've been struggling recently. LA Dodgers were going to run away with it. They've been just hampered with injuries all year long, getting Mookie Betts back now. But the Houston Astros, they've had a death grip on that division for a lot of years now. And Seattle Mariners, I just look at Seattle and I look at Houston in that division. Texas, I've been holding out. Is DeGrom going to come back? Then Scherzer comes back. Then he goes down. So Texas, I'm kind of putting away now. I don't think they're going to make a run. I've been waiting for them to. This Seattle team, 1 through 5 starting rotation, as good as there is in baseball, probably the best starting rotation. They have 5 interchangeable number ones, but they can't seem to get that traction. They're behind now. I think they're getting whooped as we speak by the Detroit Tigers and Skubal. A lot of people have been whooped by Skubal this year, but I don't know. Can they? Of course they can. Is Verlander going to come back? He's had the neck for a long time. He's going out on his second rehab. Valdez, Brown, you got Kikuchi that came over from Toronto. Is that enough? I look at their bullpen. You had Hader and Presley, best bullpen arguably in the game. All of a sudden, they get off to a rough start. They're coming on strong out. Now their bullpen's back at the top of the American League. So, of course they can. If you get a healthy Verlander back and he's kind of defying gravity at his age, still pitching the way he's pitching, that Houston Astro team with the experience, that lineup is really long. Adding Diaz at the catching positions really made it even a longer lineup. Alvarez is acting like an MVP again. So, of course, yes, they could. Will they? I don't know.
Yeah, and the team, that was the boogeyman for your brother's team, the Yankees, for many years, the team that everybody was kind of afraid of in New York. Now we've got Jazz Chisholm with the UCL injury. For you, right, how big of a loss is this for the Yankees? And how do you feel about their postseason hopes from what you've seen so far this full season?
Well, the thing that gives me hope about the Yankees is I watched them get off to that blistering start. It seems like they're kind of mirroring each other, them and the Baltimore Orioles, both top the division. I think going into play tonight, the Orioles are up by a half game. But I watched them go through a month period. It played about as bad as they could play. Still, one of the top records in baseball. The key to me, the key for me, rather, the whole time with the Yankees isn't Aaron Judge. Obviously, Aaron Judge is the MVP right now if the game's over. He's the best. He's the best offensive player in the game, hands down. For me, it's not even close. Arguably, the second best offensive player happens to hit in front of him, Juan Soto. So I don't worry about those two. We know what they're going to do. They're going to be MVP guys. The key to that lineup for me has been Giancarlo Stanton, and a productive Giancarlo Stanton. He missed 6-7 weeks. He went on the IL. He's back. And what he does is he's a threat in the middle of that lineup. It's now, once you get past Soto, once you get past Judge, it's been easy pickings for him this year. Now all of a sudden with Stanton there, I think he makes the whole thing go, and you got to keep him healthy. The more I watch the game in 2024, I think now more than ever, health is the key reason. In past years, 20 years ago, guys didn't get hurt like they get hurt today. So getting a seat at the table, we talked about that a few weeks ago. Getting a seat at the table now, the 12 spots, is the most important thing. But having a healthy team that's got a playoff berth at that time, that's the most important thing. And Yankees are going to be in that position.
You know, it's interesting you talk about guys not getting hurt the way that they did. Now, why do you think that is? Is there a way to prevent that, or is there a way to change that? Is it just, like what would that be for you if you had to guess?
I think the criteria, how we went about our business back, and I'm not saying we're tougher. Well, I will say that we were tougher. My father was tougher than I was, and my grandfather was way tougher than my father was. So I think as life goes on, your dad's always tougher than you. So I'm going to take that. My generation, we were tougher. No, it's different. The atmosphere is different. How these kids are brought up today is different. In my day, if I had an injury and I had some clout, which means I was a seasoned big league player, I kind of had a lot of the say. Where, hey, my trainer for years and years in Seattle, Rick Griffin, I'd go to Rick and say, listen, my ankle's fine. Well, Booney, it looks like you're hobbling. Don't worry about it. I will play tonight. I'll play tomorrow. I'm going to talk to my skipper. I'm going to talk to Lou Piniella, and I'm going to tell him I'm fine. And if he says I'm fine, I'm playing. Things have changed a little bit. The protocols change. The pecking orders change. If there's an injury, you are pulled out right away. And that starts at the minor league level. It's the culture now with kids coming up. They want you at 100% playing this game. So it's not necessarily the players that are softer. It's the way they're treated. They make sure they're good and ready to go at 100%. Whereas in our day, it's kind of you tape it up and you go with it. So it's I'm going to put this onus on the players. I put it on the culture and the way that Major League Baseball is today.
Do you think that's also because of the monetary component, and they see
Absolutely.
kids, as potential investments?
Right. It starts from ownership on data. I mean, if with the money they're paying these guys today and the hundreds of millions of dollars of contracts, I can completely sympathize with an owner saying, hey, I've got $150 million into this guy. And if he comes back early and injures it for real and it's a career threatening injury, well, that 150 I spent's not working for me. So I completely get the business side of it. It's just that's where the game is now, and the price to be paid for this unbelievable payday that these guys are getting today is, well, you don't have as much control of whether you're on the field or not. We used to sit there and look at the lineup, and if I wasn't in the lineup, it was a panic. Like, I've got to get in the lineup because I got to get my numbers. Got to drive in 100 runs. I got to hit X amount of home runs, and I know if I'm not out there, I can't do it. That's not the thought process these days for these guys. It's you're going on the IL, you're going for 10 days. I saw a guy the other day get hit by a pitch, and he just walked into the dugout, and it was over. And I just thought, a buddy of mine that's texts me all the time is Albert Bell, a guy I played against for years. And he'll text me. He said, did this guy just walk into the dugout and he decided that it's over? And I said, I don't remember ever coming out of the game by, getting hit by a pitch. You get hit by a pitch, it hurts. And you go to first. At least you go to first. You play out the inning. You go on defense. If it's a real injury where you're swelling up and you can't play. Now, I get it. You're over. But I saw a guy go right to the dugout. And I thought, well, I guess he decided his night's over. So it's just the way the game is now. It's part of 2024 baseball.
Another guy who's been hit by a lot of pitches is Pete Alonso, another guy in New York. Yeah. You think he's moving on? And if so, where you think he goes?
Shoot, I thought he was moving on at the trade deadline. Then all of a sudden the Mets played their ways into contention. I would think so. I would think at this play. I think Pete has had an unbelievable career thus far. And he's a guy that you can pencil in for 30 minimum, a lot of years if he stays healthy. And he is a guy in today's game that has the ability to post. That sucker plays every day. And as a teammate, I appreciate stuff like that. So watching Pete Alonso, the if you look at his career, the summary of his career, he's going to have a lot of suitors out there, and I think he's going to test the mark. It's going to depend how much the Mets want to really bring him back, but I think Pete's definitely going to go out there, and he's going to have a lot of suitors out there. For me, being personally have a little bit of a personal investment with the Seattle Mariners, just because I spent a ton of time there, and I keep a special. I'd love to see them land a big-time player like a Pete Alonso, throw them into the middle of that lineup to help a young Julio Rodriguez as this franchise goes forward. Because I look at that pitching, and I say this type of pitching doesn't come along too often, and you got to take advantage of those 5 horses they got right now, especially 4 of them under team control, with Castillo being the only one that has the long-term contract.
Yeah, talking to Bret Boone, BetMGM tonight. Let's look at that Mariners team real quick. I mean, 2.5 games out of a wild card spot right now. We know they're younger, obviously, as you mentioned. But what is, like, one, do you see this team making a run and maybe squeaking their way into the postseason? 2, what would be the ceiling for them this season if they were able to do that?
Well, I think, too, the toughest part right now is who is going to win the World Series, who's going to get to the World Series. I think if we just go back 5, 6, 7 years ago, it was the writing was on the wall who the best teams were and who's going to get to that postseason, who's going to have a legit chance at the World Series. And when the World Series was over, most of the time we're saying, hey, the best team won. I don't think that's the case anymore with the 12 seats and the 3 rounds of playoffs just to get to the World Series. I was naming this off the other day. I just go up and down my sheet. LA Dodgers, could they win the World Series? Absolutely, as everybody's healthy. Philadelphia Phillies, I think they're the best team in baseball. Milwaukee Brewers have been there all day. Nobody's talking about them. They're pretty good. Arizona just rattled off 16 of 20. The San Diego Padres just won 17 of 20. The Atlanta Braves are the Atlanta Braves. They pitch. A lot of the guys are having down years on the offensive side. Albies is out. Acuna at the beginning of the year went down, their MVP. I understand that offense is down. You go to the other side, you got Baltimore, the young talented team as there is. They pitch, they hit. Cleveland Indians have been atop the division all year. Houston Astros now are coming. The Yankees, obviously. The Minnesota Twins. Boston's a sneaky good team. So there's so many people. If I give you those scenarios, you can make a case and say, yeah, every one of those guys could win the World Series. So I just don't think it's as clear cut. Once again, I go back to the beginning of the conversation was you've got to be healthy going into the postseason. Your horses have to be ready to go, catch lightning in a bottle. Seattle Mariners, they could do it with that pitching staff. They could run the table. Will they? I don't know. They got to get there first. I don't think there's a wild card coming out of that American League West. I think there's going to be one team, and it's whoever wins the division, Houston or the Seattle Mariners.
Wow. From a fan standpoint, from like a watchability standpoint, Bret, who are the 2 teams that you want to see in the World Series that fall into the category of that you feel like they're going to have momentum heading into the playoffs, they have a stacked team, and you think that this thing could go the distance?
I was looking at the Baltimore Orioles. Do they have enough starting pitching? You've got Burns and Suarez, Kramer, Rodriguez. Rodriguez is on the IL right now. Is Kimbrel somebody you can trust in the postseason at the end of that bullpen, where you had Bautista, arguably the best closer in the game, go down with Tommy John? I like their youth. I think they're going to have more in the tank than most other teams because of their youth, and they're talented. I don't think the Diamondbacks, unbelievable run. Okay, I'll give you my call. Who's I think's built for it? I think offensively, the San Diego Padres. Tatis has been out for a long time, but Bogarts has found his second win and is starting to play good. Machado, the veteran, probably one day maybe future Hall of Famer. Arise, Kim. They're a scrappy team. They play the game. And I think what they did at the trading deadline by getting those arms in the bullpen, I think they just now have the best bullpen in baseball, and I think they're built for it. I think you've got a Cease and a King and a Waldron in the starting rotation. You really need their horse, Musgrove, to come back and be Musgrove. He's been atop that rotation for a while. If Musgrove is healthy, I think the San Diego Padres set up, and I know that's probably not the most popular, but I think with a power bullpen and what they can do offensively, for me, it's the San Diego Padres.
That's why we asked. Not what's popular, but what you think.
Yeah, and it's not always about the popular. Like you said, it's momentum, getting in there, healthy, all those things absolutely matter. Bret Boone, 3-time All-Star, 4-time Gold Glove Award winner, and the host of the Bret Boone podcast. Love having you on. That was awesome. Really appreciate you giving us the time.
You got it. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Bret.
You got it.
I kind of just want to sit and just get stories again like that. That's one of my favorite things. Just getting stories. He's the best. Can we have him on for a whole hour at some point? I would love that. It's BetMGM tonight.
It's time for our trifecta to take a break. We'll be right back with lines, leans, laughs, and much more on BetMGM tonight, live from BetQL.